This is the video tutorial to go with learning target 7.1 and 7.2, which is solving quadratics. So make sure you're reading questions very carefully when you take this test, because there are some questions that are going to specify a particular method, and if you don't do that, then you're not going to get full credit for this, particularly when it says, oops, show all your work. So just make sure you're reading questions carefully. So as we're doing these questions by factoring, I'm going to be focused on this last number here. Not to worry about the equals 0 part, I can kind of ignore that to begin with. I want to focus on those numbers from the last unit that multiply to make 12 and subtract to make this middle number, which we've got to remember there's a 1 here as well in this question. So I think things like 6 times 2 certainly give me 12, but 6 take away 2 gives me 4, so it's not that. And hopefully you find 4 and 3 pretty quickly. So I can fill in x and 4, and I can fill in x and 3. Now also with it being negative 12, I know the signs are going to be different. I'm trying to finish it with negative 1. So with a little experimentation, negative 4 add 3 does give you negative 1. Now I kind of ignored the equals 0, but I need to go back to that now. So once it equals 0, either this is 0 or this is 0. So this would be the opposite of negative 4, which is positive 4, and the opposite of positive 3, which is negative 3. Now I'm going to do number 3 first because it's closer than 2 and 4 are, as in it starts with just n squared rather than a number at the start. If it doesn't equal 0, then the first thing you need to do is you need to make it equal 0. So the opposite of negative 21 is positive 21. So if I add 21 to both sides, negative 21 and 21 gives me 0, but I also end up with that positive 21. So numbers that multiply to make 21 and also add to make 10, hopefully you find 7 and 3 pretty quickly. This time with it being a positive though, I know the signs are going to be the same, and as I'm trying to get negative 10, I know that they're both going to be negative. Negative 7 take away 3 does indeed give me negative 10. And then if we do the opposites, instead of negative 7, positive 7. Instead of negative 3, positive 3. Now for questions 2 and 4, we use slide and glide this year. So I'm going to move the 2 to the end of the question here, where the 3 is, and multiply. So 2 times 3 gives me 6. I'm going to ignore the equals 0 just to begin with. Numbers that times to make 6 and add to make 5, that's going to be 2 and 3. You've got to be very careful you avoid 6 and 1. 6 take away 1 gives you 5, but you've got to add these numbers together. So a plus 2 and a plus 3. Now at this point, remember, you're not finished because we've got to do the next part of the question. So we multiplied by 2. So now we've got to divide by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 3 over 2 does not simplify, so this number slides up to the front to give me 2a plus 3. Now, I probably could have written down the answers of that previous step, but I'm going to go with the factoring method first because it says I'm supposed to do this by factoring. Then I'm going to do the opposite, so instead of positive 1, negative 1. Instead of positive 3, negative 3, and this times in by 2, divide by 2 to give me those fractions. So questions that start with a number besides 1, often you're going to get fractions as answers, which is not what happened over here. Now if we try question 4, we'll notice this doesn't equal 0. So if I subtract 15 from both sides, obviously 15 take away 15 is 0, and I would get negative 15 equals 0. Then I'm going to multiply the 6 across, so x squared minus 13x minus 90. And then I'm going to find numbers that divide into 90. Now this is kind of a tough one, and I know some people have difficulty with doing this. So on the numbers that are not so easy, just remember we can actually just try on our calculator until we find the correct answer. So I know I've got to subtract to make 13, so I could do 90 divided by 1, and that certainly works, but 90 take away 1 is 89. 90 divided by 2, 45 take away 2 is 43, that's no good. 30 take away 3 is 27. We're certainly getting closer at least. Decimal, so that's no good. And then divided by 5, 18 take away 5 is 13. So it might take you a little while, but at least it's guaranteed to find you the right answer if you're not sure what the answer is going to be. So it was 18 and 5. I know the signs are going to be different, and I'm trying to get negative 13, so I'm going to go negative 18 plus 5. Remember, of course, we're not finished though. We've also got to do the 6th part as well here. So I'm going to divide both of these by 6. So 18 divided by 6 is 3. And 5 over 6 does not simplify. So I'm going to bring the 6 up. So I've now factored this. And then I can do the opposite. So instead of positive 3, negative 3, instead of positive 5, negative 5, and instead of times it by 6, divide by 6. Remember, although it does say show your method for this, you can of course check using Desmos or using the yellow calculator just to confirm that those answers are indeed correct. Now the other method is the quadratic formula, and they'll give you this formula if they want you to use that. That's going to be on your formula sheet. You just need to know how to use it. So I set up some of this question ahead of time. So step 1, check it equals 0. That one's good. Write down your A, B, and C. Remember, if there's no number, it's going to be 1. And also make sure you're checking for signs as well, because they're important too. Step 3, you're supposed to write down the quadratic formula. I'm just going to use it from here. And then step 4, we're going to plug in our numbers into that formula. Now, I actually noticed there was a careless mistake when I actually didn't write this formula down. This wasn't deliberate, but I actually noticed here where it says 4AC, I actually substituted 4BC. Well, actually, I didn't even substitute 1 incorrectly. So A here is supposed to be 4. So I'm going to change that right now. And then as I go ahead and start to simplify this, the two negatives definitely make a positive 1. And then this part, actually now, with that error there, that's actually incorrect. It's supposed to be 129. And 2 times 4 is 8. Now, you can try and work out the square root of 129. It's going to give you a decimal. So for right now, we're just going to leave that answer right now. When we get to a later unit, we are going to look at how you can simplify radicals, but for right now, that will suffice. So first of all, I notice this is not equal to 0. So I want to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 10x to both sides. And if I do that, that becomes 0. And negative 3 add 10 becomes positive 7, which is why I've got b equals 7 here. I can do the same thing. I can write the formula down, which I had up here. And then I can substitute into that formula. And hopefully this time I substitute a little more accurately. Negative, there's b squared minus 4ac. I think I was looking at the a from this one when I was writing this answer and I just made a careless mistake. And then a on the bottom there as well. Notice I'm substituting with parentheses. And the negative of 7 is just negative 7. 2 times 1 is 2. And I just got to work out what's inside the square root here. And that should be 21. You cannot work out the square root of 21, so that's actually going to do us for this answer. And that actually covers the questions for 7.1, although you will be tested on 7.1 and 7.2 together.